Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, today we're taking on a really fascinating and honestly highly practical mission. Our ultimate goal here is to completely crack the visual code of Rwandan road signs so we can get you fully test ready for the Rwandan National Police driving theory test. We're going to take what might just look like a random assortment of metal plates on the side of the road and transform it into a highly logical, perfectly organized visual language.
So I want you to ask yourself honestly, could you pass the Rwandan National Police theory test, like right now? If you were suddenly dropped behind the wheel in the middle of Kigali, would you know exactly who has the right of way, or what every single red circle demands, or how to navigate those infamous roundabouts without immediately getting a ticket? Look, don't worry at all if the answer is no, because by the end of this explainer, you're going to have the exact visual tools you need to navigate these streets with absolute confidence.
Here is our quick game plan for today. First, welcome to Kigali. Second, the sign families. And third, practical application. Let's get right into it.
Welcome to Kigali, the stakes and the matrix.
All right, to really understand the stakes here, you need to understand this exact number, 50,000. That is the absolute maximum fine in Rwandan francs that you can face for traffic violations, with fines generally ranging from 10,000 to 50,000. And here is the thing you've got to remember. Enforcement via camera in Kigali is strict, it's efficient, and it is entirely unforgiving. They are monitoring your speed, they're checking for red light violations, and they're closely watching your overtaking maneuvers. The margin for error? It's incredibly thin. So, the crucial first step is understanding the basic ground rules. In Rwanda, orientation really matters. You drive on the right-hand side of the road, which obviously means overtaking is strictly done on the left. Next up, zebra crossings. These are absolutely sacred in Kigali. A complete stop is absolutely mandatory the exact second a pedestrian steps out. And finally, you just have to respect the moto taxis. They are literally everywhere. You've got to give them plenty of space and constantly anticipate sudden stops or quick maneuvers near their designated bays. Now, to navigate all of this safely, you really need a cheat code. And that is exactly what this master decoding matrix gives us. In Rwanda, the shape and the color of a sign actually dictates its family before you even have a chance to read the symbol drawn inside it. If you see a triangle, a circle, or a rectangle way off in the distance, your brain should already be preparing for a specific type of instruction before your eyes can even make out the fine details. But before we break down the 5 specific families, I want to prep your brain for a really clever visual trick. Let's call it the circular sign test. Whenever you see a perfectly round sign, it is dictating a strict regulatory rule. You literally have no choice but to follow it. But the color of that circle, that reverses the meaning entirely. Just look at this stark visual contrast in action. On one hand, you have the do not protocol, where a red ring strictly dictates restriction. It totally bans an action. On the other hand, you've got the must do protocol, where a solid blue circle dictates compulsion. It forces an action. They're both incredibly strict rules, but the red ring says you cannot turn left, while the solid blue circle demands you must turn left. Mastering this contrast is honestly half the battle. Moving on to Section 2, the sign families, decoding the visual masterclass. Okay, Family 1, this is all about priority. Notice how these signs use completely unique silhouette shapes. There's a brilliant design logic going on here. Because right-of-way is quite literally a matter of life and death, you need instant recognition. The stop sign is an 8-sided octagon. The give way sign is an inverted triangle. Even if these signs are covered in mud or you're just seeing them from the back, their unique outline instantly tells you who has the right to move first. Then we've got Family 2, which relies entirely on the red triangle. That red border basically screams alert, and the triangle shape pointing upward acts like a hazard indicator. These signs exist for one reason, to warn drivers of what is coming up ahead. Notice how they break down into road geometry, like sharp curves or narrowing roads, terrain and surface warnings, like a steep 12% grade or slippery roads, and infrastructure hazards, like upcoming traffic lights or roadworks. When you see a red triangle, you prepare to act. Next up is Family 3, prohibitory signs. Remember that circular sign test we just talked about? Well, here is the red ring in full force. These dictate strict action bans like no U-turns or no overtaking. They dictate entry and vehicle bans telling specific users like pedestrians, motorcycles, or heavy goods vehicles to stay out. And they dictate hard physical limits too, setting maximum speeds, weight limits, height, and width constraints. You absolutely must not cross the limits set within these red rings. Now, within this prohibitory family, there's a crucial distinction that trips up a ton of people on the test, and it has to do with halting your vehicle. We really need to clearly separate no parking, where brief drops might actually be tolerated, from no stopping, which is a much, much stricter rule that enforces a total ban on halting your vehicle for any reason at all. Let's see how the signs communicate this. Take a really close look at the visual exception presented here in the parking matrix. Both of them have those blue backgrounds, right? But check out the red lines. The sign with a single diagonal slash means no parking. You can generally get away with a brief stop to drop off a passenger. But the sign with that severe red X, that strictly prohibits any stopping or waiting at all. The visual language uses that double line to firmly cross out any thought of pulling over, usually because you're in a danger zone or a bus lane.
All right, shifting gears completely to Family 4, mandatory signs. These are the solid blue circles. And remember, blue means must do. These signs force specific directions, like turn right ahead or ahead only. They dedicate specific paths, reserving routes exclusively for pedal cycles or pedestrians, and rather than setting maximum limits, the blue circle actually sets minimum constraints, like forcing a minimum speed of 40 kilometers per hour.
Finally, we round out the families with Family 5, information and direction. You can actually feel the calming shift in the geometry here. We leave the strict circles and alerting triangles behind for simple squitters and rectangles. These signs aren't barking orders at you, they're just calmly providing helpful information. Blue squares tell you about local facilities like parking or fuel. White rectangles assist with navigation, like pointing out a dead end. And green rectangles lay out the rules and directions for those high-speed expressways.
Which brings us to Section 3, Practical Application, Surviving Kigali's Roads.
Let's start with speed, because this is huge. What's really interesting about this speedometer breakdown is how it maps out the default zones. In schools and dense pedestrian areas, you're at 20 to 30 kilometers an hour. Typical Kigali urban streets are 40 to 50. Rural roads hit 60 to 80, and expressways are 80 to 100. But here is the absolute most critical takeaway. Posted red ring signs always override these default zones. Whatever number is printed inside that red circle is your absolute, legal, camera-monitored maximum. No exceptions.
Okay, picture this scenario. You're approaching a narrow bridge or a bottleneck where only one car can pass. Who goes first? I want you to burn this golden rule into your memory. The red arrow always waits. If your direction of travel is represented by the red arrow, you must yield, period. But if your arrow is the larger, dominant white or black arrow, you have priority over the oncoming traffic. Simple as that. The red arrow always waits. Our last practical scenario is surviving the infamous Rwandan roundabout. This takes a strict 3-step procedure. First, the approach. You absolutely must slow down and yield to traffic already in the circle. Second, the flow. Because Rwanda is right-hand drive, the circulation is strictly counterclockwise. And third, the exit. You must signal left right before you intend to leave the circle. Let's look at how this maps out. When you look at this procedure from a bird's eye view, you can really see those blue arrows dictating the counterclockwise circulation. Notice the yield lines at the entrance. You do not enter until it's totally clear. But the biggest thing, look at the car exiting. In Rwanda, activating that left indicator just before your intended exit is absolutely mandatory. It tells everyone around you exactly what you're doing, and it keeps the flow safe and predictable. So, the really crucial point to take away from our whole explainer today is this final checklist right here. To be a truly test-ready driver in Kigali, you've got to memorize the golden rules of your shapes. Triangle is hazard, circle is regulation. Respect the Kigali survival rules. Zebra crossings are sacred, counterclockwise flow is standard. And always, always remember, those cameras are watching your speed and your red lights incredibly closely. We've decoded the matrix, we've broken down the families, and we've navigated the absolute trickiest bottlenecks Kigali has to offer. You know the signs, you know the rules, so are you ready for the road? I really hope this explainer has empowered you with the visual confidence you need to ace that theory test and get out there safely. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and I will see you on the road.